what bodywork does is it specifically addresses the fascia. So let's talk about it. What does bodywork do in relation to fascia? Bodywork actually specifically addresses that fascia that's under that superficial layer of skin, that it has 6 to 10 times more pain receptors and is really the culprit for what causes the muscular pain. So there's a big loophole in the West here when we think that in order to treat muscular pain that we just address the muscle and the mechanical system, and really not addressing what is responsible for the health of that tissue even functioning properly in the first place, which is fascia. So since fascia is 70% water-based, we are solely responsible for keeping our fascia healthy. So a lot of the epigenetic our lifestyle, right? So our lifestyle is very important as far as, getting enough sleep, staying hydrated, eating nutritious food. But we know in 2024, that's really hard to do. We got a lot of processing toxins, a lot of crap in our food that is really foreign to our body. So every time we eat those sorts of foods, our body has an inflammatory response. And that's not necessarily healthy for our fascia over time. Being in that inflammatory response creates a lot of beta oxidative properties, a lot of, free radicals floating around. The reason why I bring that up is because there's a lot of cumulative reasons why fascia loses its health over time. It's not just, hey, you're getting older and that's why you're starting to fall apart, which is kind of sad that collectively we have that stigma in the West where it's like, oh, you're past 30 years old, now everything's gonna start falling apart. But if we look at science, everything points to that if we do certain things to stay moving and keep that blood flow, keep that oxygenation, keep healthy, nutritious food in our bodies, that the body is amazing at repairing and it's so resilient and it has so much longevity. But there has to be awareness and there has to be the right implementation to keep that fascia healthy. So what happens when that fascia gets unhealthy? Well, it gets very rigid. So it's stacked on layers and it's very fractal. And it's elastic, but don't be fooled by its elasticity or its thin type nature that it's so layered. This tissue in certain areas of our body and the pathways, and it flows from head to toe, it's everywhere, guys, this tissue can be as strong as 2,000 pounds per square inch of tensile strength. So it's very imposing on the body. You can imagine, if you're, sitting in a certain way in your car or leaning or turning a certain way at your computer every single day, what kind of effect that'll have on the fascia, right? Because fascia grows stronger over time. It can be trained to get stronger. That's how Olympic lifters and certain individuals in sports, right? That doing those same movements over time, some of them don't even look like they have the musculature to produce those sorts of, efforts, but it's not just muscles, it's fascia that creates that sling, that whip, in order to create that velocity, right? And that fascia, as we do those repetitious rhythmic motions over time, it gets stronger. So what happens if we're used to doing one sort of motion like in weight training, but we're not, working the other vectors or patterns that are gonna strengthen other aspects of our fascia, since it's fractal and it comes from all different directions. So what we're seeing in science basically is that a lot of functional movement in all sorts of different directions. So, it comes back down to just how we were designed, right? We were designed to climb, we were designed to run, we were designed to row, all this functional movement, to dance, is actually very, very healthy for our fascia, and especially when distributed at a light load. So when we're doing a lot of these movements at light load, this is really, really healthy. Oh, excuse me. It's really healthy for our fascia and hydrating that fascia. When we don't move over time and we're having all these, chemicals in our foods that never used to be there, and all sorts of things like high sugar that create more free radical breakdown. A lot of these things just like add fuel to the fire, right? And speed up the aging of that fascia. So when fascia ages, it gets dehydrated, right? These fascia cells, these fasciocytes within the fascia are responsible for keeping those layers gliding upon one another that allow for us to move pain-free. What happens when that fascia starts to die off or starts to lack in its nourishment is it starts to get these little rigid edges where it starts to kind of peel on one another. And since fascia has 6 to 10 times more pain receptors than muscle, that can feel very painful. So if you ever had, like, maybe you haven't worked out in a month or something, or quite a bit of time, and all of a sudden you jumped in a very high intense class that maybe was a little too much, and then you woke up the next day and felt like you got in a car wreck or something and just whiplash, like, what the heck is it even that? Like, oh my God, it's so restricted. That's fascia just being pushed past its threshold, and the residual of it is some of that fascia is not able to hydrate and repair at the level that we're doing these sorts of things. That's why a very gradual approach is always the way I take with a lot of clients that are interested in building more musculature. Being very gradual and staying along the track of how we were designed physiologically and doing more functional pattern is the way to go to prevent injury. At least from my own practice and what my own experiences with my clients. So fascia has no adaptive feedback loop, guys. So when we strength train, muscles grow. When we stop training over a period of time, because life, right? Those muscles atrophy, right? And they get smaller. That's the body's adaptive response, right? Over time, the body has evolved to be very intelligent and adapt to what we throw at it. So those certain stressors. Same thing with bone, right? We start running, we start jogging, we start squatting, the ossification occurs and the bones hollowify and then they get stronger, more dense on the outside, all that good stuff. When we don't start moving, right, what happens to a senior citizen or, you know, a grandparent in a nursing home? All of a sudden they get very sedentary if they're not moving a lot. Well, bone health starts to decline very quickly and all other things start to decline along the different hierarchies of health because of lack of oxygenation, lack of blood flow, and lack of that stroke volume efficiency, right, within the heart, all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's interesting. All this stems from, you know, fascial health and lack of movement, right? Movement is really the key to life. Is what everything points to as far as all of this neuroscience, all this cool stuff we're learning. But yeah, fascia is very different from muscle and bone in that it has no adaptive feedback loop. So say you fell off a ladder or something, you know, 5-10 years ago, and it was, man, I really bruised my tailbone. I didn't need surgery or anything, but okay, I'm fine now. But notice, like, man, you know, years later, it never was the same. It feels a little stiff. Well, when we get impact or an injury, the fibroblasts will stimulate that area to produce more fascia in order to kind of guard and protect. It's really the body adapting. The body's very intelligent, right? It's trying to survive. It thinks, oh my God, there's an external threat. Produce more fascia, protect, guard, and survive. But after the area has healed, since there is no adaptive feedback loop hormonally that will reduce that fascia, it just stays there. And over time, that extra fascia that doesn't need to be there blocks blood and all the good, all the nourishment, all the oxygenation that it carries to those avascular areas like tendon, ligament, and fascia. The other, the fascia that's still healthy, right? That extra fascia there is just kind of like blocking and not really aiding in blood flow. And it starts to get rough over time, like we talked about, as it's not hydrated properly, and it starts to get very rigid, and all of a sudden it starts to create dysfunction. So first it starts to die off, in which fascia can die off, and it just kind of stays there, and it almost becomes calcified and almost starts to feel like scar tissue. And then an array of issues can permeate through that mechanical system, because like we talked about, it's not just localized, right? Fascia is more integrative. It's everywhere. We have spiral lines. We have lateral lines that come from here all the way to here. So that's why one issue can start here, and then all of a sudden, you know, a few weeks later, we're counting on that repairing on its own. All of a sudden, it's like, dang, my shoulder is hurting now. And now this side, and oh my God, my hip. It's all interconnected. And since the body has no adaptive feedback loop, to reduce that fascia post-injury, it's kind of like a cumulative domino effect that's happening. So that's what we do. That's the beauty of bodywork. What bodywork does is we actually go and we can really just perceive with this, we call it exquisite touch, or just using your hands, your tools to really just feel where those adhesive pockets are, that unhealthy tissue. And we really just work to break up that tissue, that deadened fascia that is no longer thriving, and really manipulate the healthy tissue. And what we're doing in maneuvering all this tissue is essentially we're breaking down deadened fascia to create optimal blood flow, but we're also hydrating the healthy fascia so that it can produce more of those fasciocytes and start gliding more healthily like it's supposed to. And why is that important for your muscle is because when fascia is properly hydrated, it functions like it's supposed to. So then the muscle will start performing like it's supposed to. The Golgi tendon organ that innervates from tendon to muscle and tells the muscle, hey, you can contract at 100%, or hey, you're a little dysfunctional, there's some things going on, so we're gonna limit how much you can contract to 60, 50, 40%. If you ever had an injury like that where it's like, man, my body is like, I momentarily don't have the strength I used to, and then as it starts to heal, you get your strength back. That's another defense mechanism of the body. That proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation that occurs when we do a lot of these passive stretching. That mechanism is kind of that same pathway. So the Golgi tendon organ, as the body starts to become more healthy and that fascia and that tissue starts to repair, will then signal the muscle, hey, we're healthy again and we can fire off back at 100%. But that's not necessarily because the issue was concerning the muscle, the culprit really being fascia. What we're talking about, right? So that is why bodywork is so important. So that is why body work is so important, because the body has no adaptive feedback loop to remove this unhealthy fascia built up. And we know now that a lot of factors, not just overuse, impact our fascia. We know that a lot of these compensation patterns that we're not meant to be in and day out, result in unhealthy fascia over time. And retraining fascia is very important. We treat it, we hydrate it, and we recorrect the issue, right, with that body work. But the issue isn't necessarily fixed in body work. We're just creating that relief, and we're creating the ground, the groundwork for the body to do what it does best, repair. So we break down all that old tissue, and then what happens is we're stimulating the reproduction of new healthy fascia to be produced, is full of collagen and those glycosaminoglycans, and it's able to function like it's supposed to. And it's all a result of the body work that creates that stimulus. So over the next few days after that body work session, that granulation phase happens in which we're producing new healthy tissue. So pretty awesome, pretty interesting. But that is why body work is so important. That's why I'm so passionate about this, because I am an advocate of body work. I am a client myself. I really believe in this stuff. I came to a point in my life post-COVID where I was encountering all kinds of injuries because of my lifestyle choices during COVID, and because of just overtraining and mismanaging my stress and really not paying attention to my body. And I was like, man, I tell all the right things to my clients, but I don't practice any of these things. And so it was a big hit to the ego, but when I started practicing what I was preaching, I was like, oh my God, this stuff really works. It's crazy when you experience yourself. And maybe that makes me sound a little bit like a hypocrite in the past, but that's okay. Transparency is very important, and I want to be transparent in that. That is what really ignited me to go full force in a lot of this body work and homeopathic healing, because I'm like, man, more people need to know about this. I mean, I am injury-free now, no body pain. I mean, here and there I have some dull things, but I get my body work sessions. I am intentional with my nutrition, and no, it's not perfect, but my God, I mean, I thought at one point, like my body was really breaking down, and I was like, man, I'm just getting older, and shoot, you know. But it's incredible it's incredible. The body's ability to heal and repair is remarkable, and it really means a lot to me to be able to share that with my clients and watch them experience it as I work with them. And it just means something more that I've experienced it myself, and that repair and that rebuild. And I'm like, I keep pushing in the ways that I know how, because it's like you just know that experience is everything, and it's life-changing. And it's like to do the things you love to do again, and be more open-minded to be like, you know, I have so many more years to do this, and it's not just, there's just like an end of the line, you know? So it's pretty special. Yeah, I'm trying to think, what else could I say about fascia and body work? I think we said a lot. So, oh yeah, I have these instruments here. These are the Graston technique instruments. I'm a huge advocate of Graston technique. It's a soft tissue mobilization technique using surgical grade stainless steel instruments, not to be confused with gua sha, whatever you want to call it. It does do that scraping technique, or dynamic scanning, as Graston technique calls it. But it also, the technique is so much more than just scraping. I mean, there's a lot of the strumming techniques that teach you how to really address the tendon and ligament sites, those avascular areas, and to really manipulate for that deep release. And doing it with the soft tissue instrument requires a lot of training, because you can hurt somebody with these. But if you give yourself time to learn enough about them and spend enough time with each instrument to know how to use, I mean, there's quite a few up there. I will say it just kind of took my practice to a whole nother level. There's no one right answer for every client. Every person is their own sort of puzzle to solve, which I think is really fun about this, this profession. So, you know, but this technique is incredible. I noticed that the relief in, because I only use this in chronic pain dysfunction areas. On occasion, moderate issues, but I've noticed that the relief lasts probably like almost twice as long when I use Graston technique. I've also been able to help people that I never thought were maybe beyond preventative health, and I was like, man, you know, you may need, you know, an X-ray, and you need to be in the hands of a really good physical therapist, because, you know, but I've been shocked at what I've been able to achieve with this knowledge and skill and these instruments. So if you're a provider, practitioner, and you're interested in expanding on your craft, guys, Graston technique, not to mention the information that you will learn, a lot of their peer-reviewed sources and how they back their technique is just, it's awesome. I can't say enough great things about Graston technique. So last thing I will say about fascia, I guess we're kind of jumping everywhere, but I forgot to mention, talk about its fractal nature. So we did say that it's elastic, right? And it's stretchy. But we also talked about how in certain areas it can be as strong as 2,000 pounds per square inch of tensile strength, which can be, which is amazing for us, right? Man, we can tap into some crazy fascial pattern strength if we train it in that way. But when it's dysfunctional, man, that can be a, you know what, that can suck, right? Because that fascia that's unhealthy and not hydrated and all scrunched together and you know, calcified and almost feeling like scar tissue and very painful because it has 6 to 10 times more pain receptors, and it's like all stuck together. That's not muscle, guys. That's our fascia. That's our that tensegrity, that architecture that holds our whole body up, is based off of fascia. We have to understand that. It's fractal in nature. So even though it's elastic, whichever way we stretch it, it has this very intelligent design in which it has layers that adapt to whichever way we are moving. And you'll find these striations start to occur within the fascia, these lines that will, whichever way we stretch, there's there's enough fibers that it's able to track with whatever you're doing. It's really bizarre when you look at some of the live imagery of connective tissue. So, and that's not to discredit anything of Western medicine. I'm an advocate of Western medicine. It has its use cases. But like I talked about in the beginning of the video, as I flip my little therapeutic bag, like I talked about in the beginning of the video, I'm open-minded and I try to subscribe to what works and not necessarily what makes the ego feel okay. And I feel like that's something I have to check myself on almost every single week, because it feels comfortable and it feels safe to want to draw lines in the sand, right? But it's not about being right or wrong. It's about being effective. It's about producing a high-level result. So I just try to stick to that, keep the ego in check, and try to deliver the highest level appointments that I can. Yeah, if you're interested in having any conversations on fascia or looking for treatment, you can email me at leo@phtheory.com. And yeah, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're taking care of your fascia, because like we talked about, super important. And I hope you're getting your bodywork sessions. Now, how do you find a bodywork specialist? Somebody that really specializes in these sorts of modalities. Google, look up your practitioner's training, ask questions, call the facilities and ask if they have real myofascial training. Don't ask for deep tissue. Deep tissue is a very basic Western massage that is great if you just have sore muscles. So I'm not discrediting deep tissue massage, but it has its purpose. If you're looking for pain relief and you're looking for treatment on a homeopathic therapeutic path, then bodywork is what you need. You need real myofascial release. And that's a whole nother level of training that is involved there. So with that being said, thank you for taking the time if you even got to the end of this video, because man, can I ramble, but I hope you're having a great day.